Hey everyone, Ashley here. Welcome to Ashley Talks Movies, and welcome to my review of Amsterdam. This is a new film from David O. Russell, and it stars Christian Bale, John David Washington, and Margot Robbie as three friends who find themselves caught up in the investigation into the mysterious death of a decorated war general. Now, before I get into the review, a few things. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Also, hit that notification button so you don't miss any of the videos that I'm posting. Okay, time for the review. So, Amsterdam. Well, it's a mess of a movie. It's just a complete mess. Despite the all-star cast, which, I already mentioned Christian Bale, John David Washington, and Margot Robbie, but this also has Rami, Malek, Anya Taylor-Joy, Robert De Niro, Michael Shannon, Mike Myers, Chris Rock shows up. I mean, just an all-star cast. Despite all of that, the movie is overlong, complicated, convoluted, chaotic. Any of those descriptions fit this movie. It's just a mess. Now, if there's one thing I can say that this movie does really, really well, like just stand out of the movie, is the costume design. So the story mostly takes place in the 1930s, but there are flashbacks to World War I, and the costumes have such attention to detail when it comes to that time period. And so the costume design, and along with the set design, I would say as well, are just fantastic, completely on point, amazing. Everything else in this movie leaves a lot to be desired. I mentioned that this movie is convoluted, and this story is literally all over the place. Now, when I did my description, I just basically said that, the main characters are friends who find themselves, involved in this investigation into the death of this general. That's part of it. But really, it's, Christian Bale's character, John David Washington, and Margot Robbie's characters. They meet in World War I. And then after the war, they spend a number of years, I don't know how many years, I don't know if the film even mentioned how many years, but they spend some years after the war in Amsterdam. And they all live together. It's just this very they're living it up, having a great old time, living in Amsterdam. And then some things happen. They kind of go their separate ways. Christian Bale and John David Washington's characters end up in New York. They're still friends. And then they get hired by this woman who wants them to look into the death of her father. Her father was the general that they served with in the war. Something mysterious happened with him. She doesn't think it was just natural causes. She thinks there was foul play involved. They agree. And then they kind of get wrapped up in all these other characters start showing up. There's this whole kind of conspiracy thing going on. There's government stuff. Anyway, it's a lot going on. And the thing about this movie is, as I was watching it, as all these different things are happening, the entire time I kept asking myself, what is going on? What is happening? What does any of this mean? Where are they going with this? What's going on? And even though my questions were answered at the end of the movie, it was a chore getting there. It felt exhausting watching this movie, waiting for things to be revealed. This film also has a problem with tonal shifts. I don't know if that was intentional, but there's so many tonal shifts in this movie, and it really creates some really awkward moments in the film. For example, there are moments in this film where it feels like the scene was definitely set up for humor. A very humorous moment is happening. However, that moment falls flat. Nobody was laughing. I didn't even chuckle. But it was clear that it was set up to be humorous, but it wasn't funny. There are also moments in this movie that are clearly supposed to be serious, and yet they come off as really silly. I don't know. It's almost like this movie doesn't even know what to do with itself. Like, it's juggling too many different things and can't quite hold them all together. I already mentioned this movie has a very, very star-studded cast, and despite having these really talented actors involved, the characters they play just come off as one note, no dimension. All of them really felt like caricatures, you know? It felt like each character had a specific kind of quirkiness about them, and that's just all that they're going with. Like, none of these characters felt fully fleshed out. Even Christian Bale's character, who I would say is probably the most fleshed out of the bunch, still kind of came off as just a caricature. And that's not, you know, a knock against the actors, because I think all of them did a pretty decent job with what they were given, Bale especially. But yeah, just felt no connection to these characters whatsoever. John David Washington, in my opinion, felt miscast here. And I like John David Washington. I've liked pretty much everything he's been in. I just think he was miscast here. And then his character has a relationship with Margot Robbie's character, and I do not think those two have any chemistry whatsoever. It was something off there. They didn't have the chemistry. What's unfortunate is that this movie has a really timely message. But it kind of gets lost in all the other stuff that's going on, all the other stuff that doesn't really work. And so it really just felt like a distraction, the way in which the story was told to get to the conclusion. One last thing I'm going to mention, and it might just be me. I have no idea if other people felt this way watching this movie, but I was definitely getting some Wes Anderson vibes in this movie. Not necessarily the shot composition, because Wes Anderson has a very distinct style, right, in how he composes a scene, a frame in his movies. But there was definitely some kind of Wes Anderson vibe happening here. And if anything, it felt like this movie was trying so hard to be all these other things that it ended up not being its own thing. You know, with Amsterdam, this movie could have been so much better. And it just feels like a waste. You know, a waste of a very talented cast, waste of a good story. It just feels like there were so many ideas in this movie that were interesting, that could have worked had they been handled differently. But ultimately, it just all fell apart. So that's my review of Amsterdam. If you've had a chance to watch the film and you want to share your thoughts, you can do so in the comments section below. While you're here, like this video, hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this.